I don't see Peterson defending the status quo, by the way. What I see him saying is that if you want to change society, then do so incrementally by focusing on specific problems and testing your results, but avoid grand narratives in the sense of totalizing theories that try to explain society at large, all the quadrants if you want, and try to reduce the quadrants to one specific principle, particularly if it's one principle that is usually only apt for one of the quadrants or one of the stages. So avoid grand narrative in this sense, particularly if you then try to impose this kind of grand narrative to all people, as in the case with communism. This is to be avoided. So he's critical of our ability to understand ourselves and of reason, but only because it's very difficult to test our hypotheses concerning consciousness and society. It's very difficult to test them within controlled environment, and what we have to rely on is myth, narrative, the past experiences of past generations to use as a first orientational guideline when we're building our own identities. So you construe your identity, you're free to construe your identity, but you need the past as a basic orientational guideline, and it's a bad idea, I think, as far as I get him, if you try to do what the hippies did, namely try to invent yourself from scratch, try to give yourself any kind of identity and expect any kind of identity, any kind of narrative that you give, any kind of narrative that you identify with, to be as good, to be working as well, particularly also on a societal level. The idea seems to be that we can use tradition as a starting point. We can try to make explicit hidden wisdom, which has been passed down without really explicitly understanding it, and of course change and adapt society stepwise, but not start with changing society as a whole, since society is so overly complex. And this is a point he's making again and again, that it's much easier to break something, that it's actually a miracle that all of this is working, all of these quadrants are actually fitting so well together, and it's much more likely that we break something than we're fixing something.